Welcome back, City Builders. Kodiak the Kodiak here. In today's video, we're going to be going over all of the new mods, maps, and mod updates that have come out in the past 2 weeks. Now, before we get started, about 80% of you who watch my videos are not subscribed. So if you guys are enjoying the content and coming back week after week, you might as well drop that subscription. It also means a ton as we're slowly approaching 4,000 subscribers on the channel. So before we get started, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you can keep up to date with all the Cities Skylines 2 news, tips, and tricks. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, now before we get started, you might be like, okay, well, we're in game. This is a modded map update. What's going on here? So before we actually dive into everything in this video, I want to tell you guys a little bit of a tease of what we're going to be working on the channel here. So sometime in the next few weeks, I want to be working on a new video that will kind of go over some concept called Gizmos, which is available here in the developer mode that I don't really feel like enough people are utilizing or looking at, and there's really not a lot of mods utilizing its features either. So I kind of just want to bring awareness to Gizmos at the start of this because I want to do an actual full video on it and all of its features. So what Gizmos essentially are like advanced tools to kind of allocate and figure out different features or different resource usage in your city. So if we go down here to the garbage debug system and we actually enable that, you'll see a bunch of bars pop up across my city, and you can use these bars to figure out like what's producing garbage, how much garbage is stored, how much needs to get picked up. So as you can see here, there's like a lot of garbage here, and you can tell that there's actually 2 separate bars on all of these buildings as well. I believe one is storage and the other one is potentially like used space. I actually don't know. I know the taller the bar, the more garbage is there. So obviously that one's got either a lot of garbage, just producing a lot of garbage, it can store a lot of garbage. I haven't dove enough into the system, which is why I wanted to bring it up at the beginning of this video, because if anybody else has, I would love to hear about it down in the comments so I can help do some better research for future videos. There is a ton of other systems in here as well. So you can also turn off accumulated garbage. So now it's just showing how much garbage is being produced. So I guess this is actually producing a ton of garbage. And then over here, we can see how much accumulated garbage there is. So that's how much is actually accumulated at all of these places. And then this is how much it's actively producing. So this is producing a lot of garbage. This building is producing a lot of garbage. What is this right here? This groundwater pumping station is producing a lot of garbage. So this is a good way for you to kind of help figure out like what's going wrong in my city by utilizing these gizmos. And it's something I'm going to start looking into in these next few weeks. So again, if you guys see anything or know anything about these gizmos or know any tips or tricks about them, please let me know down in the comments. And keep an eye out for a video highlighting this feature in the future on the channel. Okay, so here we are in Thunderstore. I have everything kind of organized out. There really wasn't a lot of new mods or mod updates especially that have come out in the past 2 weeks. And if you're wondering where the Word of the Week coverage is, I actually uploaded that on Friday. So I'll put that up in the annotations right now so you guys can go back and take a look at the Word of the Week video that was uploaded on Friday. At this point, I think I know every mod that's currently actively in development, and if I don't, then obviously I wouldn't know as I say that, but I've also seen an early build of most of them. There's like 1 or 2 I haven't that I just know are being worked on that I haven't seen yet, and when I tell you guys that some of these are going to be absolutely jaw-dropping when you see them, like I am not exaggerating at all. And there's one that a bunch of modders are actively working together on right now that should be out sometime within the next few weeks. And that's all I can really tell you guys about it. But just know that a lot of these modders, while they're not releasing new mods right now, there's a big one that should be coming out sometime in the future. So keep your eyes peeled for my newer videos where we'll obviously talk about it as they come out. So there is about 4 new mods and a bunch of new maps. So if you guys enjoyed the previous map video, this one will definitely be a continuation of that because there is a lot of really awesome new maps that have come out in the past 2 weeks. I would say that this has been the 2 weeks of maps because wow, has there been some good ones. So let's start off here with the mods first, and we're going to dive into Let Pets Stay at Home, which is a mod that basically allows household pets to stay at home or in a neighboring city. Essentially, you will just see less or virtually no pets anywhere in your city. So if you're looking to maybe reduce performance because you think that reducing the pets will do that or whatever, or you just hate dogs for whatever reason, you monster, you can actually use this mod to remove them if you want to. And again, all of the mods and maps that we talk about today will be linked down in the description, as well as my Thunderstore code. Now, my Thunderstore code will not include any of the maps we talk about today, but it will include all of the mods that I'm currently using in my Cities Skylines 2 saves. If you were ever curious which ones I actively use on a day-to-day basis, these are the ones that I use. There's also 3 mods here. If we actually go into it right here, there's going to be 3 down here at the bottom that I don't actively use, but I included them in the profile because they are visually changing mods, and you might want to use them and mess around with them. I don't currently use them. They're all made by Naoko, who's been doing a really good job making some visual changing mods for the game. So if that's something that interests you guys, those are there, but this basically includes all the mods that I actively use in my game. And if you don't know how to import it, all you have to do is go over here to change profile, import and update, import new profile from code, and paste the code that you will see down in the description inside of this box. And then it should automatically download all of those mods and put them into a nice profile. And then every time you launch the game, just make sure you launch it using modded. Next up is a new mod. This is the newest mod that's actually dropped since I recorded this one, and that is called Prop Light Mod. Light props plopped with dev mode tools now reflect the time of day. So I guess before this mod came out, when you placed a light pole or like any object that radiated light, it wouldn't actively work like all the other lights on the map. It wouldn't turn on when it becomes nighttime, or maybe they were on already and they would just never turn off during the day. I really don't actually know, but I know that they didn't work properly, and that's what Prop Light Mod does, is it allows those light features that you're now actively placing using developer mode, they'll actually work using the real life time of day cycle. So that's also really cool. Next up is a new map theme called the Bryxton Bay Theme. I believe I showed off Chameleon's map theme last week, and this is a new map theme called the Bryxton Bay map theme. I am in love with this one, and I think having this one alongside Chameleon's is really, 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 really good. And let me show you guys what I'm talking about. Okay, so here we are back in my main city that I've been kind of working on over on Twitch, which if you are ever interested in watching, you can find a link to down in the description. I haven't really touched it in a little while. I don't know, I'm just playing other games right now over on Twitch that I'm not playing Cities as much, but this is the map that I was building over on Twitch for quite a while. And if we look over here, we can just kind of take a little note, especially at the mountains. So what this texture pack does is, if you are unaware of the map texture replacer mod, it is basically like Theme Mixer from Cities Skylines 1. And what it will allow you to do is, if we go over here and switch to the desert map theme, it will allow you to change to a different map theme. So now the grass looks like sand, and if we scroll in, you can actually see that it does look like sand, and it changes the texture of the mountains, and basically every aspect of the map is completely different. So if you were ever interested in making a desert theme map, you could realistically do that here using the desert map theme. But one of the core elements of this is having those different packs, and those different packs could be used for different things. So with this Bryxton Bay pack that just came out, I wanted to go back through and just give a little refresher on it, because I think, for me at least, it completely changes how I look at my city. So for example, the Mountain Village map is a very mountainous map, and while I don't really like, I guess, the default pack of the game, when we actually shift it over to the Home of Chameleon pack, I actually think this is a amazing pack for a more mountainous map. Just in general, I think it really changes the texture of the map. I think it, like the colors, everything just looks more like what I imagine this valley to actually be. The mountains look more mountainous, and everything just kind of feels more right. The grass feels better. I really like the Home of Chameleon pack for a more mountainous map. Now, the new Bryxton Bay theme, if we go over here and take a look at this mountain as we switch over to it, now, you'll probably notice a couple things. Immediately, the grass is probably a little brighter to you, but you'll also notice there's a lot more grass that begins to appear on these mountains. And what I've found to be really useful for the Bryxton Bay theme is to actually have the Bryxton Bay theme be used specifically on maps with more rolling like hills. So maps that I don't necessarily want to be super mountainous, but I want to feel like they're hilly in a way where the grass kind of rolls over the hills. So it's like there are majestic plateaus or something like that, but they're not devoid of life like a steep mountain is. My also personal preference is to use either the default grass or the Home of Chameleon grass. I personally just feel like the Bryxton Bay grass is like a little too bright for me, but if it's what you like, then it's what you like. I want to explain this maybe a little better on a different map where it maybe makes a bit more sense. So we'll just, I'll toggle it on and off here. So if we look over here, you can notice that there's, again, a lot less grass that's actually apparent over here versus when we go over to the Bryxton Bay theme. You'll notice that it just completely changes how the mountain looks. Again, I really think the Bryxton Bay theme leans itself into a more hilly map than it does a mountainous map. So let's actually move over to one so you guys can understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so here we are in the Great Highlands map, and as you can see, we're using the default theme. So we have the pretty noticeable sandy looking mountain cliffs. They're very tan, and we can see that there's like some big plateaus, and this is the exact kind of map that I feel like would benefit from the Bryxton Bay theme. So if we actually go over and switch it over to the Chameleon one, you can see how it really takes that default theme and just kind of changes the colors. And while it looks great, I don't really feel like it fits this map because I wouldn't imagine that these would be so steep and rocky that grass isn't necessarily growing in some of the crevices here. So if we actually switch this over to the Bryxton Bay theme, and you can actually see the grass start to grow on this, and I don't know, to me it just feels a lot more realistic, and I think it's way better for a map just like this. And again, there's nothing wrong with the Bryxton Bay theme on mountainous maps, and there's nothing wrong with using the Chameleon's theme on a map like this. I just personally feel like I think that this really excels at utilizing the rolling hills of a map like this to really highlight what it's doing to these cliff edges and making those grass really feel like they're a part of the cliff rather than making the cliff the standout feature. So anyways, that's the Bryxton Bay theme. Just wanted to show that one off and kind of explain why I like it and why I think it's a must use for me from now on. If I'm playing on a map like this, I'm definitely using the Bryxton Bay theme. And if I'm playing on a mountainous map, I am definitely using Home of Chameleon. Now the final mod is Highway Name Remover, which removes the display names from all streets and highways. So if this is something that you want, if you didn't like the immersion breakingness of having the road names be on top of everything, or you're just kind of annoyed by seeing them all the time, you can use Highway Name Remover. This came out, I believe, like right after I uploaded the last weekly recap, not the one that I uploaded 2 days ago, where we actually talked about the word of the week, which was by far, in my opinion, the best word of the week. And I highly suggest you guys go back and take a look at that if you haven't already. But this one is just talking about the mods. And so when I uploaded that last one 2 videos ago, this came out right afterwards. And it's a really nice mod that I feel like is kind of like an essential feature from Cities Skylines 1, where you could just kind of turn it off. And now you can actually do that. Now, as we move on from that, we're going to head over to the Maps tab here that I have nicely organized at the top of my screen, where we can go over all of the new maps that I feel like are worthy of a shout out. Now, if you found a map on Thunderstore and you're like, wow, I really liked this map, I'm not saying that the maps I don't include in these videos, I don't show you guys every single map that gets uploaded, and it doesn't mean that those maps are bad, like especially the ones that Ancient Swan, who we're actually going to be talking about one of the Ancient Swan's maps today. But Ancient Swan makes maps, for example, that are kind of art projects in and of themselves. They make historical recreations of things, and sometimes they use the terraforming to make, I guess, structures almost out of the land. And I don't really feel like those are always great to spend the time on the video to show off, because the map itself is the art project, and it's not really useful for somebody who wants to go build on it, because I don't really feel like they're really conductive for building a good city all the time, which is why I'm kind of selective on which Ancient Swan maps I show off, because I think that this one that we're going to show off in a little bit is actually a really nice map for you to build your next city on. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the maps I don't show off are bad maps by any means. I don't want anyone to think that I am not including a map because I think it's terrible and blah, 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 blah. But there's really 2 main reasons why I don't show off specific maps. I don't know who the target audience is for the map. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I just don't necessarily feel like it's just fits into the video in a way. And then the other reason is if it doesn't work with Map Installer. And so you could always install all of these maps manually, but if it doesn't work easily with Thunderstore, I just don't want a bunch of people coming in the comments and being confused on how to install a map or saying the map doesn't work because it doesn't work with Map Installer, which is a mod that I've pushed quite a bit on the channel here. So if it doesn't work with Map Installer, I just kind of leave it out of the videos. So mostly for a time perspective, but also for ease of use for all of you at home. So now that that's all out of the way, let's dive into these maps. And this first map we're going to talk about is by Octopolis, and it's called Draconia. It's a map for a collaborative series between Octopolis and Barbosa cities, based on the, I don't even know how to pronounce that. My Portuguese is not great, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, but it's a region in Brazil with a lot of changes in the terrain, and this map looks absolutely fantastic. Let's take a look at it. So an important thing to know about this map is it's actually this map right here. It did not properly name itself for me. So just keep that in mind, that if you do choose to download this map or any other map, that sometimes the names don't translate right. And obviously we don't have a perfect map importer yet. So like, I don't necessarily know if it's the map maker's fault. It should just be an error or something. I don't know. I've never made a map in Cities Skylines 2, so I genuinely don't know what the issue is, but it is called this for me. It might be called the normal map name for you. It might also be called this. I'm not too sure, but here we are. It is a map for collaborative series between Acapulco and Barbados cities. Here we go. It's a North American theme, 8 to 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Northern Hemisphere, 42% buildable area. It has all of these outside connections except for the water pipes, and it has a pretty abundant amount of natural resources. So without further ado, let's dive in and check out this map. Okay, so here we are, and just so you guys know, I am using the Bryxton Bay theme on this map currently. Maybe we'll turn it off if I feel like I want to show off the map in a different way, but we're kind of met right here with this coastline, and I'm immediately going to open the texture view and know that it is a very flat area. Again, this is a map that they intended to use themselves, so they built this very intentionally for themselves and then provided us the save file, or the map file, I guess, to be able to build on it ourselves. So that's an important thing to take into consideration when looking at this map, is that they have intent with all of the things on this map when it comes to actually building on it. So it might not be useful for you, and maybe like, why did they do that? Well, they might have an idea in their head, I guess, that isn't necessarily for you at home. So just keep that in mind when taking a look at this map. But I mean, as we zoom out, I think you guys probably feel the same way I did and go, wow, okay, I really like the way this map looks. The terrain looks super cool. And if we go into the terrain view, you notice that there's some very intentional flat areas that they probably intended to build on. Something I've kind of been pushing away towards recently is like ultra flat maps, but again, they built this with their own build in mind and their intent, and I want to keep that in mind as I look at this map. And there is a lot of intentionally flat areas. We have this nice little delta over here that has a bunch of flat land that could be really cool for like a very canal focused area potentially. I really like the way that looks over there. We have this cove over here with some infrastructure where we could build a little something out over here. I just, oh gosh, has tons of little cool pockets. This could be a challenging map. It could be a beautiful map. They did use some sand textures. If we actually go over here, this, I believe, let's actually buy this tile and check here. That's something I haven't checked on this map yet. So we purchased this tile and we go on to surfaces. Ooh, this is a surface. Yes, it does look like that is a surface. So they did do some sand surfaces along the edge of the map. And first off, I think it looks absolutely great. And on top of that, I think they did a really good job hiding the line of the surface, because if you actually zoom in real close, it is a surface. So they did just draw a straight line. But a lot of times beaches, especially when they have a cliff down like this, they sometimes are just a straight line. This is how a lot of coastlines, at least here in Michigan, are. And we have, you know, we're surrounded by the Great Lakes. We live on a peninsula. And so this looks very familiar to me in terms of like a coastal sandy beach. So I actually really like how they did some of the beaches on this map. And if we look at the terrain view, there's a huge flat area here that could easily support a larger city or town right here. And with all of the sandy coastline, the Bridges and Ports DLC coming out soon, this could be a phenomenal map for that once that comes out. I guess not soon. We don't know the timetable for that, but it is going to be the first major DLC. So it's something to look forward to. There's a pretty sizable area you can build on. You can go all the way up here into the mountains, and there is some flat areas up over here if you wanted to build up here. And in the top left-hand corner, I guess, if you consider the coast south, in the top left-hand corner here, there's a huge flat area as well. It does have some rolling hills and could be nice for a more inland-based city if you decide to build some infrastructure out to it. There is also this peninsula down over here, which kind of mimics the other side, but maybe has like a bit of a hill in between. So if you want to put a tunnel through here, the possibilities are kind of endless on this map at the end of the day, when they built it so intentionally for themselves. But you can really see their vision in terms of how this builds, and I'm actually really excited to take a look at their series when it comes out, because I really like this map. So if we go into resources and we go over to the or an oil view if it works. Hold on a second. My resource view got turned off there for a second. So here we are back in this, and you can see that there is some ore up here in the hills. So that flatter area up over here could easily be turned into an ore mine if you wanted to, or just anywhere up in the mountains or hilly areas. If we go over to oil, there is some very intentional oil around the coastline. I really like how they turned this delta into the oil area. I think that fits super well to the resource views. You know, when we think of like ore, we think of like the more hilly areas where there might be some more pockets in it. But when you think of oil, sometimes it's really interesting to see how map creators all take oil placement differently. And I really like that they utilized it here in the deltas and then along this coast as well. The farmland is pretty much anywhere where there's fresh water running or some flat land. And the groundwater deposits are also here in the deltas as well, where the water table is realistically probably higher as well. So I really like this map a lot for all of those reasons. And if we go here and take a look at the wind direction, I always click on the water pollution one first. I believe the wind spawner is down over here, and you can see the wind just like curve and go absolutely crazy. But I believe the wind spawner for the map is over here. So, you know what, I might be wrong. It might be over here as well. It's really hard to pinpoint on this map, and I remember struggling on my Twitch stream when I checked this out, that I was struggling to really figure out where the wind direction was coming from, and I know it's coming from over here somewhere. I think it might actually be up over here somewhere, because it looks like it's blowing down this direction, so it might be like right over here. So keep that in mind when you're building your industry, that the wind's spawning kind of from over here, and then because it's so hilly and mountainous, you really are going to have to check before placing every single industrial building, just to make sure that the wind direction isn't blowing into some place you don't want it. So yeah, really fantastic map. I really like all the intentional spaces. I like the beaches that they used with the textures. I think that's going to look potentially great with the harbors and, bridges DLC. And yeah, I just think it's a really good starting tile as well, where you can really build out on as well. So really great map, 10 out of 10, excited to check out that series. So next up is a realistic recreation of Canberra, Australia, which is by Demo Plays. This is the capital of Australia, and it goes down here where you can actually take a look at a bunch of the description. There is no like connection with map installer, like there's no dependency for map installer, but this map did install. So if it doesn't work for you guys, this might be like a manual install one. I didn't manually install it though. A map installer did work properly with this map. So just keep that in mind, that if it doesn't work, it's probably what's going on. So inside the game here, this is the new game screen for Canberra, Australia, which is the master planned capital of Australia. If you've never taken a look at it on Google Maps, I highly suggest taking a look at it. It's a very interesting, well-planned city. And if we go over here, the theme is North American. We have climate 52 degrees to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very warm. It's in the southern hemisphere, realistic. 80% buildable area, has the highway outside connection, a rail outside connection, and an airplane outside connection. There is no harbor outside connection, and there is no electricity or water being brought in from the edge of the map, so keep that in mind. And it does have all of the natural resources. So let's dive into this one. Again, I'm still using the Bryxton Bay map theme on this map, but you're already met with a very pretty scene. I really like the way this looks already. So if we zoom out now, you begin to see the actual layout of Canberra, Australia. And again, if you look at it on Google Maps, you'll recognize these double roundabouts with this what appears to be a hexagon. I don't know how cities will actually handle the infrastructure of this map. You may have to do some rebuilding. Again, this is a realistic recreation, so do keep that in mind. But here we go, and if we actually take a look at the height map is relatively realistic as well. There does seem to be some flattened area over here, but otherwise they stayed true to the realistic terraforming terrain of the area as well. So you can actually build some rolling hills with your cities. So there's some natural elevation sloping. There is quite a few interesting features here. So we do have this rail line that just kind of comes through here and ends just outside of the buildable area. So you can buy over to that if you want to. There's some interesting highway interchanges as well. Again, no idea how the game will handle those highway interchanges. And there is an outside connection highway over here, as well as up over this way, over here, and down over here. You can buy all the way out to this area. I'm not sure how much of it will realistically be buildable if you don't want to do a ton of terraforming, but there's definitely some pockets that aren't too hilly that could easily be built upon. I really like the way the map looks. It might be perfect for what you're looking for. So if we go into the resource view, you notice that most of the hills have ore on them. If we go over here to oil view, very interesting oil view here. So the oil is just slapped in on the edges and there's a big circle of it here in the center. And really interestingly enough, there is the same thing with the farming resource here in the center. And then there is some more intentional placement along the edges as well. And the groundwater is basically surrounding the water on the map, where the water table would realistically be higher as well. And then if we go over here to the wind view, you'll notice that the wind does appear to spawn from up over this direction over here right on this hill. So be mindful that this is where the wind is spawning, and keep that in mind as you build out your industry. So yeah, a pretty cool map. I really like it. It's relatively flat. It has some geography to it. It is a realistic place. It already has some pretty interesting built infrastructure. If you want to keep it and keep it part of the challenge and charm and character of the map, you can totally do that. It does have some nice little quirks to it as well, and I think it's a really nice map. Next up is the Big Valley. Welcome to the Big Valley. One rural highway connection, one train connection runs through the area. No power, plenty of opportunities, lots of fertile land along the water. Mountains have plenty of ore, and the oil is up in the mountains. By Merlinium. So this is the map here. Let's dive into a game and check it out here. So we go to new game here and we scroll down. And here it is, the Big Valley under the T section here. So we have the Big Valley. Welcome to the Big Valley. One rural highway connection. Here it is. So it does get slightly below freezing here at 23 degrees Fahrenheit up to 92 degrees Fahrenheit. So a very wide selection of temperatures here in cities. So we have a northern hemisphere 21% buildable area, which is shockingly low for what the area kind of is, but we have all of the vehicle outside connections, but there's no power or water pipes coming into the map at all. And then we have all of the resources. Let's dive into this one. So again, I'm using the Bryxton Bay theme right now, but I'm going to swap things over almost immediately using map texture replacer to Home of Chameleon, which I feel like is a better map texture for this map. So that way you guys kind of get the best impression that I think is possible. So as you can see, we're already kind of greeted with this flatter area here. We're low to the ground. There's lots of bushes and trees. We have a nice little bridge over here, and you can see some of the mountains. So as we zoom out, you can see the Big Valley. So here is the Big Valley, and as you can see, you're basically just stuck building in this valley, but it is really cool. This is nice big flat area if you want to build along it, and the other side would be a little bit more challenging, but as you go up, you can lean into a more organic build. Again, this is definitely more of a challenging build, but as you go further north, you can transition away from like maybe a grid style that could exist down here at the end of the delta that could go up into more of an organic build up further, I guess up the valley. There's also this huge lake up here that is Lake in the Clouds or something, that is bleeding water down here into the ocean, which is really cool. And the I believe this is a rail line that runs along the coast here is super cool. I really like the way that looks. And you have the same thing on this side as well, but it is a rural highway. So if you are in need of a better highway, you will have to rebuild the highway network because it is just this one rural road and this one railway, and they just kind of cross right here, and that's kind of it. So again, hillier, more organic type builds, maybe up the valley, and then down at the bottom of the valley, it's much flatter for anything larger you'd like to build on this map. If you go over to the ore, again, an abundance in the mountains here. If we go to oil, not really a ton. There is some up here. It's snowy here right now, but there is more of a, if we go to the texture, it is a very hilly area up here in the mountains, but it is a buyable area. So you could build some kind of like oil refinery up on the top of the mountain, which I think is really cool. And you have something similar over here as well in this area, which you could totally turn into some kind of like mine-like structure. But again, it's oil, not ore. So I don't know how that'll look necessarily, but the entire valley has an abundance of fertile land. And if we go to the groundwater deposit, there really isn't that much. They're clearly like intentionally placed, but there's just not a lot in terms of groundwater, and you mainly will probably want to rely on the river or the lakes, I guess, for water consumption. Finally, last thing we want to look at here is the wind direction, and it does look like the wind is spawning from somewhere right about here. So keep that in mind as you build your industry. It might be best to build that industry further north in that hillier, more organic section of the map. Really cool map, has a really large variety of temperature on the map as well. It definitely could be a little bit more challenging. It could be better for a smaller, more rural build, but I think it's got a lot of character and a lot of charm to it. Next up is a really interesting map that I think will be really desirable for some people and really undesirable for others. And that doesn't mean that it's a bad map. I just think that it falls into a very specific niche that I think a lot of people will maybe not a lot of people, but I think some people will appreciate. And this is Lake Marchfeld. Welcome to Lake Marchfeld. With a winding lake traversing the landscape and an abundance of resources hidden amongst the narrow gorges, every urban planning decision is a journey towards innovation and efficiency. Enjoy. This is by Giavarco team. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but this is the map here. Let's actually dive into game now and go over to a new game. An important thing about this map is it's actually Marchfeld Lake in-game. So it starts with the M, so you're going to need to find the M starting map area and go to Marchfeld Lake. So here's Marchfeld Lake right here. It has an even more abundant description of it as well. European theme. There is only a highway and a rail connection built into the map. So if you want to do any kind of boat stuff, I don't even know if it's possible to be, if I can't remember the map well enough right now off the top of my head to remember if it's even possible to do a boat one, but the air one, you'll have to draw on the connection yourself. So just keep that in mind. And there's no power or water coming into the map either. So let's dive on into this one. Okay, so here we are, and I'm going to leave it for now on Chameleon's theme. We'll switch it through and we'll see which one you guys like. Let me know down in the comments which map theme, when we show it off later, that you guys like on this map. So as we zoom out, you'll notice something very apparent about this map, and that it has little cubbies for each of the different sections of the map. So you'll also notice that you have like some starting bought tiles already, and it kind of gives, and I don't mean this in a bad way because the game was a flop obviously, but it does give a little bit of SimCity 2013 in the sense that you have like little pockets to build different cities essentially. It's a very like pocket city map, which is why I said that some people will find this really desirable, because you could build an entire city right here and then connect it up to another city over here that could have a completely different theme. So like this town could have a European theme and this one can have an American theme, and they can all work in conjunction with one another. So that way, if you wanted to build a lot of different stuff on one map and have them all work together, so you don't have to go between saves or like different stuff, they can all kind of work together here on this map, which is why I think some people will find this really desirable, especially because the land in each one of these is not just all flat. So I think that leads to being able to build something really, really nice in each one of these little cubbies, in each one of these little bowls that exists here. So as you can tell by the pre-bought tiles, you can really start wherever you want to. There is a starting area right here for like a nice swooping cove, or if you want to start building a highway or something, you could do that over here. You have another section over here that kind of bleeds into this one. We have this big, large bowl here. We have this long stretched valley that you could totally build in. I guess you could do a harbor connection here if you really wanted to. And you have this one up here, kind of more in the mountains, that you have to go down the road to, or I guess down into the valley if you want to try to leave. Since they're all isolated as well, you could make them completely independent from one another as well. So it's just a really interesting and fascinating map. It's a cool concept, and I think it's pretty well executed as well. Again, I think some people will not like this map, but I think some other people will really appreciate what it provides. So if we go into the ore resource, and this is where things get a little, I guess, disappointing, because we have so many hills here, but there's really only just this ore resource on the map. Now, obviously, if you have an extra landscaping tools mod, you can just paint the resource down however you want. So if I wanted to, I could just paint the ore resource down, but the map only comes with this little section of it. So keep that in mind. Oil, also pretty sparse. You have some up over here and then some there and there. And then farmland, basically anywhere that's flat, you can get some good farmland. So the farmland's pretty good. And then groundwater deposits, again, also very sparse, very speckled. Doesn't really feel like intentional in any way, but they're there. Finally, if we go over to the wind direction, this is where things get a little funky. I struggled on my Twitch stream to really figure out where the wind direction was coming from. I think I determined that it was coming from like this area somewhere up over here, but I really couldn't figure it out because it's so hilly and mountainous. I just couldn't really get a grip on where it was actually coming from. So just keep in mind that the wind directions are a little wild, and each buildable area kind of has it going all in one direction. So just make sure you weight each side properly. So for the example, you want to probably build your industry down over here if you are building in this tile, if you're going to build some industry in there. Now, finally, like I said at the beginning, this is the chameleon theme. Let's change things over to the Bryxton Bay theme and tell me, guys, if you like this better. I think this fits a little bit better for these hills because they're not really super mountainous. I think the tilling is a little strange just with how the map maker made it. It's not their fault. It's just the way the map texture replacer kind of takes the tilling and everything. So you could do some adjustments if you really wanted to, make it a little wider like that, and then it doesn't look so repetitive. So there's definitely some changes you can do to fine tune all of the stuff in this map. But I kind of like the Bryxton theme. Let me know down in the comments what you guys like. Second to last map here is Port Royal, Jamaica, AD 1692 by Ancient Swan. Ancient Swan makes these historical recreation maps. They're really cool. Some of them are not really practical for building on, but this one is, and I think they did a really good job on this one. So let's take a look at it. So as you can see when we click on it, there is, well, let's just say there's a lot of information about Port Royal, Jamaica here. They basically give you an entire history lesson with it. Ancient Swan does some really awesome stuff. Take a look at their Thunderstore workshop if you haven't yet, because there is some really cool stuff in their profile that is really educational, and I really appreciate their stuff. This one is just actually practical for building on in Cities Skylines too. It's got a North American theme. It's 52 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. It's in the Northern Hemisphere. 56% buildable area. It has everything except for water pipes, and it has a pretty abundant amount of resources. So let's dive on in and let me show you guys this coastal wonder. So here we are, we're using the Bryxton Bay theme, which is why the grass is so bright on this one. But as you can see, as we tilt down, this is a very coastal map. And this is looks to be like a real height map, import of the actual Port Royal area. I believe this is an island in real life. So they did add a bit of a cove here, or a connection, sorry, like an actual, like, I don't know what this is called, like the really skinny landmass connections that connect things and break water apart. I don't know what that's actually called, but they did add that. So there's an actual landmass that connects the two. I don't think that this is there in real life, but as you can see, it's a very coastal map. It is quite flat. Ancient Swan likes to keep things nice and flat for you. So if you like the flatter maps, this is definitely for you. You have a lot of buildable area, and it is a very coastal map on top of that. So you can get kind of tropical with it. Maybe once we get some more tropical themed stuff in the game, I think this will be stellar. I think this is probably what a lot of people want in a map in Cities Skylines 2. I wish we had a little bit less of the tiles that were taken up by water and we were moved inland a little bit more so we could actually work on a lot more of it. But with this being kind of the central focal point of the map, the actual Port Royal section of the map, this makes sense. So Kingston, Jamaica is kind of up over here in real life. That's what this big flat area is in real life. And then this is Port Royal. So if we look at resources, there is some ore around the map. None of it really feels too intentionally placed, but it is definitely there. We have some oil, same thing goes for that. Fertile land is definitely focused around where natural water is, but again, nothing super intentional. If you want to build around using it, you totally can. If you want to place your own, you totally could with extra landscaping tools as well. You start here on Port Royal, and over here we have a little bit of groundwater deposits that do exist. I think it's a pretty fair amount for what the map is. And if we go over here to the wind direction, I believe the wind spawns from down over here, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it spawns out here in the water. So keep that in mind as you build your industry. Probably want to build it as far inland as possible. Definitely a really unique map, and I think there's definitely some people out there who will really appreciate what this map has to offer in terms of a coastal, flat, easily buildable map. Now, finally, we have Sunset Beach, which is a map by The Real Chair. If you have not taken a look at The Real Chair's map workshop, I have basically included every single one of The Real Chair's maps in my videos. In fact, I believe Nola River and Western Valley were in my top 10 map video from before, and every other map has been included afterwards, and they would be in that top 10 if it was available. So The Real Chair is constantly pushing the boundaries of map making in Cities Skylines 2. If Sully is what I consider to be like one of the pinnacle detailers of Cities Skylines 2 right now, aside Adonis, I think that The Real Chair is that for making maps. And Sunset Beach is another extension of the beauty that they're actually able to create in this game so far. Just north of Spring Valley, which is their other map, some land just went up for sale. Are you ready to make a thriving metropolis or some small rural farming village in this new land that you've just bought? Here we are in game. This is the preview image for it. It is 51 to 87 degrees Fahrenheit. It is North American themed, Northern Hemisphere, 37% buildable area, has all outside connections, and all natural resources. So let's dive into this one. And we're already met with such a beautiful view of this map. Now we are using the Bryxton Bay theme that can obviously change how things look. And I don't know what theme or if they're using a theme when they're making these maps, but I'm going to show it off in the Bryxton Bay theme for now. And we'll maybe cycle through some of the other ones. But as we zoom out here, you can begin to see the beauty of this map. The wheelchair is just constantly knocking these maps out of the park. So we can go coast to coast here. So we can go on either side of this map here and we can go out to this barrier island. And this barrier, well, is it really an island? I guess it's more of a peninsula here, but it functions like a barrier island. And you can see this beautiful beachy coastline along the shore here, which is probably where the preview image came from and is kind of the highlight of the map. Sometimes the water gets a little funky on some of these maps, so we'll see this go away. I'll let the game play for a minute so we can see that water go away. I notice when I load into maps, sometimes that happens, but as we can see here, the wheelchair has definitely gone through and intentionally done pretty much everything that you can see on this map. We can see the intentional tree placements. We have this little lake right here. We have this lake right here. We have a flatter, more intentionally carved area for maybe some a little pocket community over in this direction. And yeah, this, gosh, I just really like this map. There's some really nice intentional flat areas, some hills, mountains, whatever you want to call them, down over there. An island over here if you wanted to build on it. You could do a little island hopping if you need to. Some little coves over here too. We have this area, and the starting tile is nice and flat with a little bit of geography to kind of work around if you want to. There's also a river here. You can build on either side of it. There's another little beach on the starting tile as well. And if we go over here, there is a nice delta. It's not a wheelchair map without there being some kind of crazy delta. And I think that this is their most detailed one yet. The map is then also bordered up here by these beautiful mountains and another flatter buildable area up over here as well. You also have some, on the other side of those mountains, you also have this river with some flat land to build on too. So as we zoom back, let's take a look at the resources, and pretty much anywhere where there's hills, there is going to be ore. The oil is found obviously in the delta areas, which seems to be the prime place for most people to put it. There's another oil deposit up over here in the hills, as well as along certain spots along the coastline. You also have farmland literally everywhere on the map, and groundwater deposits seem to be pretty intentionally placed. Looks like there's they're trying to allude to the fact that there might be like an underwater river, which is such a cool, or underground, sorry. It's just such a cool detail. I like lost my train of thought there. It was just, gosh, every time I see it, like I'm just like, yeah, that's really cool. I really like how you did that. So yeah, really cool stuff from the wheelchair. Always in love with their maps. If we go over here to the air pollution, we can start to take a look at maybe where the wind is spawning from, and it does look like it spawns out from this peninsula down over here on this side. So keep that in mind when building your industry. Last thing I want to look at on this map before we leave it is taking a look at the other map themes. So if we go to the map texture replacer and we go back to the default theme, this is the default way to kind of play the game here, obviously. We can also change over to the Homo Chameleon, which is a little bit more mountainous. I don't necessarily know how that works for me necessarily, because as we look at the rivers, they're going to maybe look a little bit more rocky than I want to, not as tropical as I'd like it to feel, but definitely works with these ridges over here, and especially over here with the mountains, if that's the vibe you're looking for. But again, the shoreline in the swamps over here doesn't really fit the vibe that I'd want. You can obviously change the dirt diffuse and cliff diffuse to fit what you'd like. But if we go over here to the Bryxton Bay theme, which is what we were kind of looking at the map on, I think this just kind of fits with it a little bit more in the vibe that I want. And just for the heck of it, let's take a look at the desert map view. So if that's something that interests you, you can always do a desert theme version of this map. So that's everything in this week's video. I hope this video isn't too long. My recording right now is looking at an hour, so hopefully I kept it below that. So thank you guys for watching this week. I appreciate it. That was 2 weeks worth of content, and it was mostly maps. So I hope if you guys hadn't found a map or you were looking for a new one, you maybe found a new map or maybe inspired to start a new city. Anyways, I'll let you guys get on with your day. I've been Kodiak the Kodiak, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.